thank you to all of you who are here. Find My Team Conversations, we started a year ago, and Find My Team is a company that partners with female student athletes to help them and their families and their coaches with the college recruiting process, which is a very chaotic, confusing, overwhelming process. But we put together these webinars, and we call them Find My Team Conversations because webinar sounds too scholastic. And these are just conversations and great topics. So if this is your first one, there are more. If you go to findmyteam.com and go to the events page, there are more webinars. We also have some on YouTube. If you want to subscribe and follow us, you can do that. You can email us at hello@findmyteam.com for any questions, comments, or anything about this Find My Team conversation that you have. Or if you want any information, if you want information about the recruiting process, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. And tonight we have our expert leader, thought leader on leadership. And I'm so excited, partly because I know Jackie from childhood. Yikes.
We just turned 21 yesterday, though. Don't forget that.
Exactly. Plus, I'm a leap year baby, so I'm much younger. I'm a leap year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm barely 12. So, all right. So tonight's topic, understanding leadership, finding your voice, is talking about how student athletes, and if you're a parent on here, how your student athlete can use her voice. There's a lot of times where people feel like they should tell young girls what to do, where to go, how to be, instead of allowing them to develop and organically create, form their own opinions and have their own voice. And so I thought, why not bring in somebody who's done this for years and very involved in this currently to speak with us tonight. So Jackie, her own self, a 4-sport athlete in high school, correct?
Actually, yes, you're right.
Tennis, cross country, basketball, softball. Yeah. So you've, and then I don't even know if they do this anymore where they cross train that much. I think we should go back to that, but I'm a old timer. But Jackie graduated from Toledo, 4-sport athlete, has coached for years, has taught for at least 24 years, and helped establish a high impact peer program, which I'm going to let you describe in a minute here what that is, because I think that's dedicated to developing leadership, which is exactly what we're talking about tonight. A bachelor's in business education, and has been teacher of the year at least one time, 2020, recently.
Right.
Of the year.
That's the pandemic.
That's a huge honor, and especially during the pandemic, which I know challenged you and athletes and coaches and pretty much and college coaches and everybody. But your commitment to student welfare and leadership and helping kids and mentoring speaks for itself. And I'm so excited to have you here to talk about this topic. So welcome, Jackie Derr. And please, Jackie, tell us something that's a fun fact about yourself.
A fun fact, other than athletics, I have a job that I get to go to, as opposed to I have to go to. So I teach STEM at the junior high level, which is a science, technology, engineering, and math. That does not mean I'm the smartest person on the earth. It's a hands-on class, and that relates to my learning style as well. And I think that's why I enjoy teaching it so much. I also have a woodworking business where I do live edge epoxy work. So
I've seen some of that work. That's pretty dang good. I'm going to be having some of that soon. Somebody might order in.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you who are on tonight, if you have a question, feel free to shoot it through either the Q&A. I guess just use the Q&A, then I'll know where to look. But I'll be watching that. If you have a question, please feel free to send it through, and we'll ask our thought leader here the question, and we'll have a conversation about it. But I'm just going to jump in and start asking questions because I have a boatload of questions here to ask you. And I know that we'll have great answers and hopefully have a little, maybe some feedback from the audience, but definitely you and I will have a conversation. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Hey, and if the audience has any, like you said, feedback, or if they have any stories to share, I might be jumping the jumping too fast here, Barb, but I'd love to hear some of their input
Absolutely.
as well. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a raise your hand thing on there. If you do want to come on as a participant, I can unmute you and you can actually come on and be part of this. So let me know if you're participating, if you want to do that, and we'll we'll bring you on to camera so that we can see you and you can ask your questions directly. Let's put her to task. Let's make her earn her free webinar tonight. All right, here we go. Jackie, Coach Derr,
yes.
what are the top characteristics you have seen in great leadership from high school students, student athletes? Let's call them student athletes for now. Let's put them in that group. Although I know you work with students in general as well.
Well, first, I like the idea of saying student athletes because you are always a student first. Um, and and as we were talking earlier, Barb, I'm a huge Pat Summit fan. She's been a role model of mine, and so a lot of my leadership um, opportunities that I give to my athletes and my students, I base them off of Pat Summit's definite dozen. So what I think the top characteristic should be is first is somebody that's a competitor, somebody that works hard, and they have to be committed and focused. And so I'm a big person with quotes. So Pat Summitt has this quote that says, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard." And sometimes you might not be the most talented athlete or the most talented team, but if you work hard, you're going to gain success. And the perfect example I have for this is I was coaching freshmen one year, and the previous year in eighth grade, the girls on my team, all but maybe two, had very little playing time as eighth graders. They had asked me, like, "Coach, can we come in early? Can we stay late and condition?" Well, back in the day, we had to share the gym. So you had to get out after your practice time. So I told them, I said, "I am willing to come in, but you have to tell me." I didn't want to, I'm not the type of person to beg you.
Because
So
it
they
wouldn't
did.
work anyways, probably.
Right, right.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
would come in early. We'd run the hallways, we'd run the auditorium seats, and we were the best conditioned team you'd ever want to see. And so here we took a team of kids that hardly played the year before, and we went 18-0 that year. And I firmly believe it was because of their competitive spirit, and that can get you so far in life.
I think, yeah, I'm just going to say something about that. It's like every profession, every single profession, every, even your home families, all the teams that we work on, work teams, home teams, family teams, church teams, community teams. If you can find those people, you have a chance. And so you're absolutely right. I believe that competitors help the situation. Even when there's non-competitors on the same team, they lift up the competitiveness.
Right. And the other thing I'd like to add to that, one of the top characteristics is respecting yourself and respecting others. They say that it takes a village to raise kids. Well, it takes every player to win a game. Even if let's say you're playing tennis, you're a singles player, you're still part of a team. You might win as an individual, but for your team to win, it takes a village, right? And so nobody succeeds by themselves. There's always somebody that's been helping you behind the scenes to make you a better athlete and in return a better human being.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And the younger you are, the harder it is to see that. But as you age, even through high school and through college and beyond, you can look back and see, oh, that person who was so hard on me, or a coach that was so positive with me and encouraging, all those people played a role in getting me to where I am. So we all have those people.
Yeah, and I think it took me a little while to realize that, as far as respecting myself. And because when I played tennis, I had a little bit of a temper back then, and we were practicing, And I didn't think that my shots were going over the net the way they should. And so I took my brand new racket and I went, hit it on the ground. I'm like, dang it. And I didn't have a tight enough grip on it. So my racket goes flying in the air. And I don't know if you might remember Tim Smith.
Yeah.
He was my tennis coach, and he suspended me for a match. And I hated that man at that time. Plus, I had to go home and tell my mom and dad
Yeah.
I'm not playing in the match. But later on, I remember talking to him, and I'm like, you know what? That was probably one of the best lessons that I learned. Is I have to have that respect. And so I went from hating him that second to really admiring him for what he did for me. And he did the tough thing, but he did the right thing.
So do you think, let me ask this a side question. Do you think, let's say you've got a student athlete, and you've kind of mentioned this already, but let's say it's a student athlete in high school, maybe a freshman. The high school scene is so new, like everything is new. And can somebody at that age, and even eighth grade, as you were talking about, understand that competitiveness and respect yourself, those two characteristics? Or do you think you have to have more experience?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think a lot of this leadership, it comes from the top down. And I was just talking to my building principal, and I told him, I said, you know what? The reason that I enjoy doing extra things is because it's appreciated, and I'm learning it from the top down. And so, as a parent, you can start your kids at a very young age about being a good leader. As a coach, you instill that. So, one of the things that I always did was I had a quote of the week that we focused on every week. So, I'm instilling that in them. So, will they get it and understand it 100%? I'm not sure. But later on in life, that light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what that meant.
Yeah. And I mean, even with my own experiences, I'm sure you have this too, where you have this, like, these stacked up experiences that really turn into something of value, either, a little bit right away, and then,
Yeah.
stacked up where you really light bulbs and light bulbs go on, where you're, oh, now I get it. Oh, now I get it. And then the next experience is a different light bulb, or it's something that's similar that you're like, I totally know what's going on. And I think that's the cool thing about sports, is that sports brings out those things in athletes. I think because you are challenged all the time. And so there are light bulbs going off. There are things happening. Your experience builds because of those experiences. And if you have somebody like yourself who is well ahead of the game and knows where those student athletes are going, or how to help them, I think it happens even faster.
Yeah. Life is, you're learning things every day.
Yeah, if you're
If you
open
stop
to it.
learning,
Yeah,
the
you start
problem.
learning. Yes, exactly. All right, so let's uh, go to the other end then. So, what are some of the biggest obstacles in great leadership for student athletes?
I have two things. One is a lack of communication skills.
Mm.
And I see this more and more than when, even though you and I just turned 21, than when we were in school. There's too much cell phones, social media, texting, behind the screen communication. Um, we need that face to face. The student athletes need to be able to talk to a coach if they're not getting playing time. Coach, what do I need to do to get more playing time? And when you're talking to that coach, make that eye contact.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. The other thing is, and this was actually one of the leadership Mondays that I do with my students. And I think this kid was probably about 8 years old. And he talks about the mindset. And the mindset has to be on both the side of the student athlete and the coaches. If you have a fixed mindset, you're probably not going to succeed very much. as opposed to a growth mindset. Um, and getting to realize that nobody is perfect. And if we take the time to listen to others, amazing things happen. Being a good listener is a part of a growth mindset. Um, if a person believes that it's only their opinion matters, that's not a good leader, at least in my opinion. Um, Another example was stop saying the word can't. I had this problem as a freshman basketball player. Shooting from the side, I was horrible. And I remember telling my coach, I'm like, I can't make this shot. And she's like, next time you say I can't, you're running. And Barb, if you remember, our gymnasium was on the stage.
Yeah, I do remember.
It got to the point where all Coach Varwick had to do was point to the auditorium, and I knew I was running those auditorium seats. But another really good lesson is I don't say I can't do something anymore. I've changed that with the growth mindset, and I'll say I can't do that yet. Because if you think about it, if you tell yourself, you know, I can't do that yet, you keep working towards it.
Yeah.
And you keep getting better and better and better. No, I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to keep working. And so I think that really helps you believe in yourself. And what we have to remember is strength doesn't come from what you can do. It really comes from overcoming the things that you thought you couldn't do.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Think about the situations where you're like, man, I can do that. Did you get a lot of strength from it? As opposed to overcoming something, you grow so much. And so I think having a growth mindset and the communication skills.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and I know that, you know, we might have some parents who are listening to this, and this will be on YouTube if you want to watch it later again. But you know, sometimes in today's world, this has probably always been there, but sometimes in today's world, if something happens with a student athlete, the parent wants to step in and take care of it. And absolutely, they love their child and they want to fix it. And there's so much love there. You know, I understand where it comes from, but can you see and talk about how that could negatively affect the student athlete's growth if that's how it works all the time?
Absolutely. And once the student athletes became freshmen in high school, I made that a general rule that the student athlete will get the schedule. You know, they need to communicate that with their parents. And this is why mommy and daddy, aunts, uncles, grandparents, they're not going to be with you your whole life. They're not going to be able to go to your boss and say, hey, look, you're treating my kid bad. And so you have to learn as an individual to have respect and learn to be able to communicate with your coaches. And when you do that, then that's going to help you throughout your entire life. And I also think it's the way that you approach it as well. If I have an athlete come to me and say, why am I not playing? Well, good for you. You spoke up. That's awesome. And I will acknowledge that. But then I will also tell them, you know, that really upsets me that that's the way you're posing the question. If you're going to approach a coach, say, what do I need to work on to get more playing time? Two totally different approaches, and you're going to get two totally different reactions.
Great point. Yeah.
And so I think when parents step in, they're really holding their child back from growing as an individual.
I like that answer a lot. And I have this new saying about, you know, teaching your child, if you're a parent, if you're a student athlete, this is directly to you. When things get tough or you get setbacks or knocked down or there's obstacles in the way, and really if you're like knocked down, like something happens that you just, you know, just is not going well, that there's this thing called a bounce, like to bounce back. So you get knocked down, you get back up and you bounce back, and you get knocked down and you get back up and you bounce back. But I feel like today we are more inclined to bounce out than
Mhm.
bounce back. And so parent doesn't like what's going on, take them out and put them there. Student athlete not having fun, take them out, put them there. Take them out, put them there, take them out, put them there, take them out, put them there. High school, take them out, put them there. College, the transfer portals are
Transfer.
copy. It's crazy. Bounce out, bounce out, bounce out, trying to find the right thing versus in something like a leadership training where you learn to bounce back and get stronger and you're able to take the hits. Because if you're bouncing from, youth sports to high school to club to college, you're going to be bouncing relationships, you're going to be bouncing jobs, you're going to be bouncing for the rest of your life, and you're going to be unhappy. But if you
Right.
learn and you get strong enough to bounce back, you're going to be you're going to be successful, you're going to be able to handle life, and because you're going to get hit. We all get
Yeah.
hit in life.
And and Barbie, you talk about bouncing around. When I first learned about Find My Team, and you and I had a conversation, I think the best part of our conversation, in my opinion, was you are concerned about the best fit for that student athlete beyond the athlete. It's because of the transfer portal and bouncing around. What if the sport doesn't work out for you? And that's what I found really impressive with Find My Team is you're looking at academically, will that person fit in? So that you don't have to be bouncing around.
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel strongly about that. And I don't think there are enough people getting this word out to families that there is a better way to approach the recruiting process and college in general, even if you don't play sports. I mean, I just feel like there's a better way. And if you are a student athlete that can find fit over money, fit over level, fit over location, it doesn't matter if that school is in Timbuktu and you have found a fit, you're going to thrive, you're going to love it, you're going to succeed, and you're going to be more prepared to come out on the other end. And I think we are truly missing the boat with our youth here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of characteristics and factors that come into play with this whole thing. It's not as simple as I'm talking, but if you can get somebody who has the guidance and wherewithal to help your student athlete get somewhere, it will work. And when she learns to have her own voice, like we're talking about tonight, I have had parents come back and say, I've never seen her so confident. I've never seen her be able to pick up the phone and talk to a coach and sound like, she knows what she's talking about. So
Yeah.
this works. And what you're talking about, understanding leadership, whether you are a leader or a follower, I think understanding it is imperative.
Right. You have to stand up and you have to have a voice. And sometimes it hurts. Um, and sometimes it's very difficult. A lot of times it's very difficult. But nothing will change unless you use your voice.
And we all have those for the most part.
Exactly.
We all have those. We all have a way to.
And it's okay for females to stand up and have a voice. Because I think for so long, females have taken the role of, I have to stay back, I have to stay quiet. And that's not the case. You know, you're not going to be as successful as you can possibly be unless you use your voice in a respectful manner.
Right. And when there's that kind of communication, it's really a conversation that happens. Like you were talking about with approaching the coach a certain way, there's a relationship builder happening
Yeah.
right there that is going to be stronger on the other side of that conversation, just because of, first of all, that the conversation was had, but also how both sides approach that conversation, because sometimes coaches have to understand their part in that as well.
Oh,
And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. When I was coaching at the high school, am I allowed to say where I coached?
Yeah, you can say,
Okay.
yeah.
At Perrysburg, your alma mater.
Yay.
Um, so I had twins on my team, and they had asked me, Coach, can we have a meeting with you? Sure. Very good athletes. And it was at that moment that I learned how important it is to understand your personnel. Because one of them told me, hey, when you yell, that really motivates me. And the other one told me, that makes me really nervous.
Twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
total opposite.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
I learned that, hey, I have to figure out how I can relate to every single one of my athletes. And some of them, yes, you can yell, hey, you got to box out. And others, you got to be like, hey, I need you to do this. Here's how you can do it. Can you do that for me? All right, great. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's
I
their rah rah.
totally can relate to that. When I first started coaching, I blanketed, everybody's got to do it this way. And some people rebelled, and I'm like, I'm not taking that rebellion, but it's like, you're right. People are individuals. And that was a major screw up for me as a coach.
Yeah.
And
That's becoming more and more, at least in my opinion, I'm seeing it more and more.
Yeah.
Where you really have to learn who you're coaching.
So you've kind of mentioned this already a little bit as we've been talking here, but what are some things you've done to foster leadership on your teams? I know you talked about,
I threaten them a lot.
Yeah, threaten. There you go. That's one way.
So I've had some great examples that I've learned from, and I've experienced some bad examples through coaching. And some of the things that I personally do is I try very hard to make sure that I approach it so that all voices matter and they should be heard.
Amen. Yeah.
Allow the athletes to have input, because when you allow your athletes to have input, they're buying into it. And so create a family environment, whether it's through team dinners. I have the quote of the week. You have to have fun. If all you do is you're drilling, you're not having any fun, you're done. And so then make sure that the athletes know that you have their back. And so I make sure it's like, we all want to be there for each other during the good times, during the not so good times, but we also have high expectations out of everybody. And this isn't just coach to athlete, this is athlete to athlete as well. And no matter what we do in life, everything that we do, it's all built around relationships and being that positive role model, because relationships are where we have that influence and we can impact and we can change people's lives, whether it's right here and now with the sporting activity or whether it's down the road for future careers. And then, like we just talked about, is take that time to learn.
Yeah.
Take that time to learn about individuals, and it just builds a better relationship. And you're much more successful.
So in my experience, and I'm sure in yours as well, because we're working with student athletes, there have been people who would be great leaders or who are great leaders, but there's one thing that gets in their way, and that is they can't get there with their teammates. Like if their teammates are not owning up to what they're supposed to be doing, they can't hold their teammates accountable because they're afraid of the losing the credibility or the likability or whatever. And so some, like I've had kids say, I don't want to be captain because they're not liked, just because they're holding the team accountable. Have you had that experience, and can you tell a story or talk about how you've dealt with that?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the first step is for the coach to make sure that they have set the expectations and they hold everyone accountable. You have to have consequences, because if you don't lead by example, you're done.
Yeah.
You've lost all control and respect. So I like to use what I refer to as the cookie method. And I call it the Oreo cookie method because those are my favorite cookies, especially when you dunk them in milk.
I'm with you on that.
Just saying, don't let them get too soft though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I teach my students this and my athletes this. So the outside layer of the cookie, you start by saying something positive. Because no matter what we do, There's always something positive. So you start with a positive. That takes a person off of the defense mode and it opens up an open-minded conversation. Then you have the middle of the cookie, the filling. That's when you have to talk about, hey, we need to change this, or you can ask open-minded questions. You can ask your fellow athlete, do you think we're all working hard? What do you see that needs to be improved? Then the outside layer of the cookie, the other side, is okay, here's what we talked about. How are we going to make that change? How are we going to fix what needs to be fixed? And then both parties of the conversation leave on a positive note with a game plan. So in my opinion, if somebody is always making excuses, that's when, as a leader, you really have to take and do a gut check and really step up and possibly get out of your comfort zone. I'm going to take that word possibly out. You have to get out of your comfort zone to stop the excuses. Because my dad always told me, if you're explaining, you're losing. If you're making excuses, you're losing, and you're not a loser. He was like, but Dad, this, nope. You're losing, and you're not a loser. So that's one of the things that I really try to teach the student athletes. And then the other one that can be done is step up and lead by example. So if we're in practice, beginning of practice, as a leader, captain, holler out, hey guys, I'm committed to going 100% today. Who's with me? Now you get your teammates fired up and you're getting them, hey, look, we're going to go 100% today. Not 110, because you can't go 110. And then during drills, just be vocal. So come on, Barb, you got this. Let's go. Come on, let's go hard. Let's play like we're going to play in a game type of thing. And I had a player this past season. I had one that was a slower runner, and we're doing a sprint. And then I had a captain that was a faster. The slower runner was at the end of the court, and this other girl finished. She ran all the way down to the other end of the court, ran back with her teammate, encouraging her the whole time. That's leading by example.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to go up to somebody, you don't have to go up and say, hey, Barb, you're not setting a good screen.
Yeah.
Or hey, Barb, that throw, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
When you approach things that way, you turn people off.
Yeah. I think that approach thing is really important. The approach, and you have to know your people, your teammates. If you're a student athlete, some people are going to be a little more sensitive and some are going to need that, that harder push. And if you're a true leader on a team, you can decipher that. I have, there's two leadership stories I quickly want to tell. One was when I was at the University of Colorado, and we had we had a team of 8. We had some injuries and some things go wrong. We had a team of 8 that actually went on to win the conference tournament and the conference tournament and the conference regular season with this group of 8 people. And really one of them, who was our captain and leader, didn't play that much. But when she spoke, her name was Deb Jacobson. Deb, there's a shout out to you. People listened. When she spoke, people listened because she was one of our hardest workers who didn't get to play. And there was nobody that was going to outwork her. And so they see her busting her butt every single day and not getting the reward, so to speak, of playing time. There was nobody that could say anything. So they just fell in line, and that's somebody who has a lot of character, because that person could turn sour on a team because she's not getting to play, or turn sour on the coaches. But she took that role, and she was probably one of the best leaders I've ever coached, because she got people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do just by saying something.
Yeah.
And then there was another kid from Colorado as well, this team that we had so much success, but this kid had 5 knee surgeries in her 5 years. So 5 knee surgeries, both knees were involved in these 5, some obviously one had 3 and the other had two surgeries, but she would go in to a game by the end of her career. We had to have her in there. And she'd be able to give us maybe 5 minutes at a time and would always make something happen. Like she was just that gritty, and she was a great defensive player. Now, in basketball, knee injuries and defense aren't usually a match,
Right.
but she was so smart and knew her body and knew what she had to do to stop somebody, or a steal. She'd steal the ball. I mean, she was just very smart and would just, she was our leader on defense. And people again saw her having in pain and ice baths after every game and practice. She didn't care. She was
She
going
was
in
that
there.
spark.
Yeah, it just like you were saying earlier, the first thing you said, competitive, competitive. Just put me in, coach. I get 5 minutes. Oh my God, I love that I get 5 minutes
Yeah,
and make something of it. And then we had to rest her for a couple minutes and give her another 5 because she was that valuable.
that's cool. Good
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Good stories.
So, okay. So let's say we're talking to our student athlete population right now. And let's say our student athlete population wants to be a better leader. What is some advice that you could give that group of people right now?
Um, 4 things.
You
Hang
are
with me.
quick.
I've when you do this, you think through like, okay, if I had the chance to say something, what would I say? The biggest thing is have integrity. Like Barb, you were just talking about that athlete that didn't get much time. Talk about integrity. So have integrity. Step out of your comfort zone and do what's right, even when no one is watching. It's not always easy, but the return is tenfold. Um, and when you stand up for what's right, even if it means standing alone.
Mm,
And I pretty much had that experience this past coaching season, um, when I didn't feel that the athletes were being treated right. This was not at Perrysburg. This was at a different school, and I stood up, and because they weren't being treated right, they weren't being listened to, and I used my voice. I was respectful, but I stood up, and I was alone, and that caused me to be told I was no longer needed. Um, and I take that as because I called them out respectfully, and he didn't want to change. So have integrity. The other one is have the ability to keep cool under pressure. And I think this is huge, especially for nowadays, is always remember who you represent. You're representing your family, your school, and yourself. And I've always told my student athletes there's things that you can control and things that you cannot control. You can't control the call that an official is going to make. So if they need to be yelled at, let me do that. But you can control your attitude and your reaction to the call. If you make that face of, what do you mean? I didn't foul her, or, what? No, she was out.
right.
Um, that you're not doing anything good for you or your team. So control your attitude and your reaction. The other one is, and you talked about this a little bit, was know how to deal with failure. I think this is huge nowadays because so many parents want to rush in there and rescue their kid, whether it be academics or athletics. And in life, we have those setbacks. We have failures. Nobody is perfect. So you have to take that time to analyze what went wrong so you can do better next time. Like you were talking about, are you going to bounce back? I use the analogy of you're going to fail. Are you going to get back up and dust yourself off and keep working hard? Or are you going to just lay there and say, I'm done. Here's my white flag. Um, so figure out how to deal with failure. And then the fourth one is be a great communicator. And we've talked about this already, face to face, make that eye contact. So one of my Leadership Monday videos, the person had said, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And when I
Love it.
first heard that, I'm like, huh? Wait a minute. No. But let me read this again. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. So think about this, the number of times as a student athlete, those that are on or watching, think about times in your life where you've been like, man, I can never catch a break. Man, I'm not getting this playing time. Well, have you done what's been easy? Have you slacked off in practice? Have you just been goofing around? Or are you the one that you're working hard all the time? You've done that hard work. So then life is easy.
It's a
And
great
so,
example. Great example.
that really stuck with me. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm showing these to the junior high kids and I'm still getting, good use out of it. And so doing the right thing at all times, in my opinion, equals success.
Great job. Great advice. This will be good. Okay, so I'm going to turn it to, because we at Find My Team, we work with three target audiences. We work with student athletes, we work with parents, and we work with coaches. So now let's say you're in front of the parents of the student athletes and, trying to give them some advice on how to help their child. Because, parents sometimes want something so bad for their child, but maybe their child doesn't want it as bad as they do. What are some things that parents can do to just foster? It's nothing forced, obviously, but just to foster a leadership development in their children.
So a lot of times as a parent, I don't have any kids of my own, but I have 34 nieces and nephews. And then I feel like I'm a adopted all my adopted kids for my student athletes.
I was gonna say, you're a coach,
Um,
you've got children.
and so those are my kids.
Yeah.
So you can provide the emotional support. Um, let them know that you're proud of them. Win or lose, there's something positive that's going to come out of it. Sitting the bench or playing the whole game, there's positives. And sometimes we have to dig really deep to find those positives. But as a parent, I feel it's your job to help dig deep, because when your child is struggling, it's so hard for them to dig that deep to find the positive of, man, I sat at the bench for 2 games now. In their mind,
Time to get up.
sorry. Yeah. In their mind, all they keep thinking is, I sat at the bench, I sat at the bench. But as a parent, take a look. How is your child reacting as they're sitting on the bench? If it's game of softball, are they up at the fence encouraging? In between innings, are they coming out to support their fellow teammates? So you have to find that and remind them of that. The other thing is encourage them to communicate with their coach, but make sure they know, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be that parent. I like to call them suck up parents that go and
Oh,
talk to the coach.
we just lost some people on the call.
I know.
No,
Don't
I'm
be
just
that
kidding.
parent.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Encourage your child to go and talk to the coach. And I've got a family member that I'm struggling with this. And I've said, hey, go talk to the coach, because maybe the coach thinks that you think it's okay not playing. If you don't use your voice, then some people just say, okay, everything must be fine. So show that love and support for your child, but yet, like I'd say, I don't spoon feed. Help them get out of their comfort zone. Because if you don't teach them now, later on in life, they're not going to be as successful as they can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answers. Great job. So here's a question for you. We were talking about voice earlier, talking about confidence. We're talking about finding your voice. Can a shy individual be a great leader? in your perspective, from your perspective?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. So with this, we call it HIP, the High Impact Peer Program that I'm the advisor for at school. It's a leadership program. And I take a group of 24 students to a camp for 2 days. And when I'm asking for recommendations, on the recommendation form, I have a section for the quiet leader and the outgoing leader. And then at camp, we talk about, hey, you know what? You don't always have to be that person that's constantly got the jaws moving. Sometimes your best leaders are the quiet ones. And like you had referenced the one player that was very quiet, but when she spoke, everybody listened.
Yeah.
And everybody valued her. And so being a quiet leader sometimes is the best leader that you could ask for. So you have to know when to stay quiet and listen, and when to use your voice.
Yeah, I think sometimes people misunderstand leadership in that, it's the title of leader because you're the loudest voice. And you and I both have had athletes come through, and that's so not true. A leader is somebody that brings out the best in other people to follow whatever the mission is, not even follow the person, but go bigger than that, to follow the mission. So it can be a quiet way. It can be, encouraging voice, as you were saying earlier. It can be all different ways to do that, but it's not just, some student athletes strive to be captain by the time they're senior or whatever. Well, we've had captains as freshmen, and we've had seniors never be captains because they didn't have the ability to, get people to see the mission, envision it, and follow it. And so it's not about title, it's not about years, it's not about seniority, it's not about any of those things. It's about who will people follow to do things they wouldn't otherwise attempt to do.
Yeah. And one of the Pat Summit, she has the definite dozen. And one of her definite dozens is put the team before yourself. Teamwork doesn't come naturally. It must be taught, which parents can help their child learn teamwork. Teamwork allows common people to obtain uncommon results.
I
Life
love
isn't
that.
about me.
Yeah.
The me mentality has to go. It has to be about what can I do to help someone else. And as you know, Barb, because you that's what you're doing for a living, is helping others. It's such a good feeling when you have that perspective, as opposed to, hey, what's in it for me? Who cares?
Empowering part. I totally get it. And it gives me, it gets me fired up just as we talk about it, is when you have the ability and a way to empower somebody so that they can go. It's thrilling to see that. And that's the whole ticket. If we could hit every individual and help them find that thing within themselves, most people have it.
Yeah.
To where they can just fly and soar and go, then every parent would want that, every student athlete would want that, every coach would want that. I mean, probably every person would want that in everybody, but we are so worried about what they're doing and what I have to do to get more, I'm going to say, love or attention or whatever from a coach or a person or a boss even. I mean, this happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Instead of going, how can I help? How can I help? What can I do to help? How can I help somebody succeed? It's a different experience, and it's awesome. I mean, you're doing this too, so it's
rewarding.
Yeah.
You don't have to have money behind it. You don't have to have gifts behind it. Your gift is being that proud mama that's like, wow, check this out.
Yeah.
Like our current principal is moving to the HR position. So one of our assistant principals is stepping in, and he's going to become our head principal. Well, remember, we just turned 21 yesterday, Barb, but
Yeah.
I had him as a student when I taught at the high school level. And so I know this is about females, but to watch him become so successful and watch him how he handles situations and is such a great example of a leader. And now to see him advance, that's a proud mama moment.
Yeah.
And that's what you can get as a parent as well.
Yeah.
So tough love sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and sometimes you, as a parent, you have to give that advice, and then you just have to keep your mouth shut and let them do their thing.
Yeah. And I think that's probably, for parents, I think it's tough to walk that fine line sometimes. And you want your child to be a certain way, you want your kid to do something, and they're just not seeing it yet. To try to figure out a way to get them there without, pushing them there, because that just rarely works, especially today.
Right.
To find ways to find other people, the other voices, teachers, coaches, sometimes grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, find my team that can get in there and just help them, find their way, because they will eventually.
Right. And I think with COVID, that has put a damper on some kids because we shut down.
Yeah.
We were by ourselves. And that's why, as parents, as coaches, as teachers, we need to really take that role serious to get the kids to open up and to learn to communicate. And like you said with Find My Team, it's like, have that voice so that you are in the right spot. Because if you don't have your voice, are you just going to be a follower your whole life? And if somebody tells you to go swim in the middle of winter in the frozen lake, are you going to dig a hole in the lake and do that? Or are you going to have a voice that's saying, no, that doesn't make sense?
Yeah.
So you have to communicate.
Well, I know we're running short on time here. I just want to quickly reach out and say, does anybody have questions for Jackie, or for me, or for about Find My Team? Again, hello@findmyteam is where you can email any questions, comments about this, or if you want the definite dozen, we can send you the link where to get that Pet Head Summit, or you can Google it probably and find it. But Jackie, it's been a pleasure. I mean, it's just really, really, I know you're obviously donating your time to help people, and this has been a great conversation, and
it's well worth it.
Definitely well worth it. I hope people, can continue their, I guess, journeys with leadership, because it probably is a journey more than either having it or not. I mean, we're still learning as well. So, it's really, thank you. And we'll give it a second here, see if anyone has any questions while we wrap up.
While we're waiting on that, Barb, one of the things that I've really learned to help me become a better leader, and I'm not going to say, I'm no expert, because we're all learning every day, but I watch how high school coaches, how college coaches handle themselves. I watch, what are they wearing? I used to get teased coaching high school because I always coached in a suit. I'm like, well, Pat Summitt always coached in a suit. Kathy Freese from Perrysburg, she always coached in a suit. Lead by example, right? And when you dress for success, it's like you have that power, and then your athletes take on that same perspective as you do. And even as a parent, and as a coach, and even as an athlete, I had asked my dad a question about, man, how do you handle things, Dad? Different situations. And he had these plaques made, and it was the poem, "Little eyes are upon you, watching every move you make." And it talks about how no matter who we are, there's always somebody watching us, wanting to be just like us. And you are somebody's idol.
Yeah.
Pat Summitt was my idol. As an athlete, you've got little kids that you are their idol. And so always be careful of your actions. What is your appearance? Because those little eyes, they're watching every single move that you make. And I thought that's probably one of the best poems that my dad ever shared with me.
I agree with that. And I think, today, I think social media is a great thing. And it's also something that you really have to be careful about because, especially if you're a student athlete who wants to be seen as a leader or who wants to be sought after for their athletic prowess and their academic prowess, what you post, who you like, what you like and what you follow, who you follow, in everything that happens on social media, what you're taking from social media. I think it's there's really, it could be a whole nother webinar.
Right.
That you just have to be careful with what you're reading, because I think especially with females, it's led to some depression. It's led to mental health issues for girls who see these models getting all these likes and thinking that their bodies aren't right, that they're not talented enough, that they're not this, they're not that, because of what they're looking at and reading and watching. And then also who's liking them and following them and what friends, all the stuff that's on there. If it's on your thread, on your channels, coaches are going to find it. College coaches are going to sift through that stuff, and parents. I mean, we've actually not recruited an athlete because of what parents were posting out on social media. And I think that's, just the whole package is a brand. And if you want to be a student athlete, and on top of that, if you want to be a leader, sports or no sports, what you put on there is so important.
Yeah. Sometimes we get frustrated. We have to bite our tongues.
Yes.
But we always have to remember there's eyes watching us. And I've even heard where college coaches won't recruit an athlete because of the way that their parents behaved at the event.
Yeah. They're I'm talking from experience. We go to the games and we seek out the parents. We ask the coaches where the parents are, and we do watch them because, as they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what the student athlete, the environment that they're raised in, it's not that to say that student athletes can't make it anyways, but there's some truth to be had there, that a parent who is obnoxious in the stands leads to a student athlete who's going to be trouble on a team.
Yeah. And it goes back to having integrity. It really does. I think everything we do in life, it goes back to integrity.
Yeah. And just authentic, being yourself and being genuine and caring about other people and having some empathy, and all those things do come into play with leadership. But
yeah,
Jackie, we're out of time. Thank you to all of our listeners. We appreciate it. If you go to findmyteam.com and you want to get on the newsletter, you'll get our information to our other webinars and our other information that we send out about the recruiting process, about nutrition, about leadership. There's a lot of topics that we share. So thank you all for joining, and stay tuned for the next Find My Team conversation.